Welcome to the Connect Like Minds podcast. I'm the host, Sharice. I interview people making a difference in their communities and in their creative spaces. Today's special guest is a motivational speaker, an educator for more than 15 years, and the author of Perseverance Over Pain. Welcome to the Connect Like Minds podcast, Mr. Fernando Lennon.
Thank you for having me. I definitely appreciate the opportunity to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on today. So we're going to jump right into the interview. Let's start with where you're from.
So I was born in Columbus, Georgia. I was a military brat, but I spent the bulk of my childhood in Miami, Florida.
Okay, cool. Now, since that you're a military brat, before we even get into your childhood, I have to ask, did you get a chance to move around with your parent who was in the military? Which parent was in the military, by the way? Let our audience know.
Technically, both of my parents were initially in the military. My father was a sergeant in the Army, and my mother was in the Army Reserves.
Okay, cool. So do you remember any of their duty stations?
No, not
Is it because you were too young?
Yeah, I was too young.
Okay.
My father, he was basically in logistics.
Okay, cool. Well, let's talk about your childhood. What was it like growing up with parents who are prior service, military,
Well, there were stages to their relationship. When I was born, they were both in the military, and it was rough. The reason why it was rough is because my mother isn't your typical female. She is very, how can I say it? She is very rough around the edges, to say the least.
Okay.
So it was almost like there were two alphas in a relationship. So it was a lot of back and forth going on. They had their own things going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It was rough. We had everything that we needed, as far as material possessions were concerned, but that emotional piece wasn't there. They made sure that my sister and I had the things that we needed early on. And then other than that, they were just focused on, making themselves happy by any means necessary.
We're going to dig into that in a second, but I would like to let the audience know that a lot of the things that we're talking about from your childhood is what you wrote in your book, which we'll talk about later. But I just wanted to make that note for the audience. Another thing that I'd like to let you know today is that I'm a veteran myself. I served 4 years in the Marines and 5 in the Army. And so when you said that your mom was rough around the edges, I could probably relate to that. Even though I had a different upbringing, completely different upbringing than you, and I was raised in a very nurturing home, but I do understand how some women can, I guess, have this alpha type personality and probably not be as submissive as most women should, or as women could be. So I definitely understand where you're coming from with your mom. Can't speak to your father, but yeah. So would you say she wasn't the most nurturing person for you guys growing up?
Yeah, I can definitely say that. And that's entirely based on her upbringing. She had all brothers, no sisters. She was always,
Man, she sound like me for real. Oh my God.
Yeah. So she's from Baltimore, Maryland as well.
Maryland, what in the... That is crazy.
I may have to run your last name by my mom and see if you're related at all. But if you know the Bond family from that area,
no, I don't.
That's family.
Okay.
There's some other last names she's told me about in the past. We'll talk about that after.
All right, we can.
But and then my father, he's from Miami, Florida, so I'm not sure if you know too many people from the Miami area. But
I don't. I only know one person from Miami.
Okay.
And I don't even think she's from there. She just moved to Miami. So
okay.
No.
Okay. Miami is definitely not what you all see on TV. South Beach and the...
Tell us how Miami is. What is it like?
Well, they call it Magic City for a reason. You know what I mean? Because it's a trick to your eyes. It makes it
Mm.
it looks like glamorous once you first get there. If you go to the South Beaches or the more upscale areas, but the city of Miami will take you under if you go in there naive and thinking everything's sweet.
Mhm.
And I've seen it
Mhm.
firsthand. Um, it was tough growing up in Miami because initially coming from Columbus, Georgia, on a military base, everything was cool. Then we moved to Huntsville, Alabama, which they all believed in that southern charm, that southern
Yeah.
hospitality. So
Bible Belt country, if you
right,
ask
so
me.
it was
Yeah.
cool to just talk to random people, and they'll be welcoming.
Mhm.
But moving to Miami, Florida, once my father got out of the military, it was like night and day. It was
Mm.
like night and day.
Would you say that your Miami really changed the trajectory of both your mom and your dad? Like you said, it's night and day, so it was good, and then Miami, maybe the things they got involved in really had an impact on their lives and changed it from there.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Well, when my father came back to Miami, which is his hometown,
Mhm.
he hooked up with someone that he went to school with, and that's how he got hooked up to crack cocaine.
Mm. I'm
And
so sorry.
you know, my mother wasn't with it. She found out, and she devised a plot to leave him. And
Mhm.
she got ready to leave, and I clung to my father's leg, and I told her, I'm not leaving my dad. Now,
Yeah.
now I just finished my second grade year in
Wow, so
elementary.
you were young.
Yeah, yeah. So that decision that I made, even though I was a little boy, that decision I made, it was costly. You know,
Mm,
that's what started
yeah.
the downward trajectory of my life.
Okay, so I know that we're about to talk about some traumatic experiences, but has there been one experience or maybe one thing that you could remember that was positive from your life that still sticks with you today as an adult?
Yeah. Before my parents split, or after the split, or does it matter?
It doesn't even matter. Whichever thing that comes to mind right now that you're like, wow, I miss that. I love that memory that sticks with me.
Well, the best memory that comes to mind off the top of my head are the family get-togethers we had at my grandmother's house after my parents split. That was an
Wow. Okay.
opportunity that we came together, family both far and near, came together for fish fries, and
Yeah.
we all talked about what was going on in everyone's lives, crack jokes, dance to music, and just live in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the moments that I enjoyed the most. No matter what I was going through in my life, once I got to grandma's house, and once my aunts and my uncles start showing up and my cousins start showing up, it was
Mm-hmm.
time to unwind a little bit and put the pressures of the everyday life in the background.
Yeah, that's a memory I also have growing up and hanging with my extended family. Do you feel like or I don't know if you're a millennial, so I don't want to say you're a millennial, but do you feel like that's something that's missing from today's society, like being able to go? I didn't necessarily have a big mama, but I had a grandmother. It and she passed away when I was extremely young. But I did have family members like great uncles and great aunts who still carried on those traditions. Is that something that's happening that you know of now for you and your family, or do you
It's
feel
not.
like that's also missing in your family too?
It's not. Not currently. And I'm gonna say something controversial,
Okay, go ahead.
and that may give me some trouble, but I got to keep it real. I keep it 100 at all times.
Please, please do that.
Personally, in my family, there's been a lot of deaths. A lot of the older generation that carried on that tradition
Hmm.
have went to glory,
Yeah.
and no, there's a lot of underlying things that's happened in different segments or different portions of the family, and you know, um, we've come together, from time to time, a few years ago, and it's almost like pulling teeth because everyone has their things that they have going on. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
there's a lot behind the scenes that is not talked about. You know,
Yeah.
and I don't know if people are afraid to have those uncomfortable conversations. I'm not,
Yeah.
as you can tell by coming out in my
Yeah.
book. Um,
Yeah.
but everyone's not like that. Some people are stuck in their ways, and the next generation is suffering. You know what I mean? Our
Yeah.
kids or our grandkids, so on and so forth, they're suffering or going to suffer as long as that rift is still being allowed to divide us. But
Yeah.
overall, as a society, and this is the part that's probably gonna get me in trouble. One of the biggest problems is the fact that grandmothers are 30 years old nowadays.
I
And and
mean, you're
and
speaking the
those
truth.
and those grandmothers, they're not like how our grandmothers were back in the day, back in the 90s. You know what I mean? Our grandmothers back in the
Yeah.
90s, they held it down. They held it down. But nowadays, these grandmothers, they in the club with the daughters. You know what I mean? Not
Yeah.
all of them. I don't want
Yeah.
to say all of them, but being an educator, listening to these kids talk and having mentoring groups all throughout Palm Beach County, it's telling me a lot. You know what I mean? And they had
Yeah.
no problem with telling me, yeah, my grandma was in the club and my mom walked in and they start turning up together. That's what they told me. Like, wow,
Yeah.
first of all, not only is the problem the fact that they're together in the club, but they're telling you about what they were doing in the club. And you're in middle school.
Yeah. They have our parents kept that from us. Like
Yeah.
well, not my dad, but he definitely let me know when he was going to the club. But my mother, I find out now like how my mom was when she was 20, 30 years old because as far as long as I've known my mom's been a church going woman. We've been married. She married my father, then divorced. They got a divorce, but then she remarried. And like so my stepdad, he's just like a dad to me, so I call him dad. But like I never ever experienced what you're just like what you're saying, how women are today. I never experienced that from my mother. I can't relate to that, which I am so grateful for. But I'm going to play devil's advocate. I understand that like we probably went away from like that whole nuclear family situation, but I also feel like things have changed from the 90s to now. People are more worried about money. Women don't have to hold it down anymore because they can go make their own money now. So they don't have to stick by Joe. And he doesn't have the accessibility to have more than he could have more than one woman, but he's not going to have more than one woman because these women are trying to chase people who are millionaires at this point. And I think that's why a lot of things have changed too.
I see.
Go ahead, tell me.
But
Go ahead,
I
speak
beg
on
to
it.
differ on that on two of those parts. The part where you said
Okay.
um, that they go make their own money.
Yeah.
My grandmother particularly, and some other grandmothers that I know from the community that I'm from, they worked,
Yeah.
but then they also held the household down as well. And
Get you.
but the problem was they were out doing the men were out doing what they do, but as long
Yeah.
as they brought that check home, they were almost in the clear.
Almost. But here's
Almost.
the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Women weren't even allowed to get bank accounts until like the 80s. So if you looking back then, why do you think she's sticking around? She can't go buy a house. She can't even own a bank account.
Well, I think the biggest issue back then, because the older generation that I can think of from the
Mm-hmm.
community that I'm from, they had a lot of kids.
Oh, yeah, they
They had a
did.
lot of
They
kids.
did.
And when you're able to get someone that wants to come and be a part of that family or that nucleus, and that has no problem or reservations about you having previous kids from previous relationships,
Yeah.
it's almost like, okay, I got one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna make a big fuss or a big wave as I'm not gonna make the same wave or fuss that I would if I didn't have any kids and I was single when I met this gentleman. But if I have kids, and if and I'm talking about kids, I'm talking about 5 or 6,
Yeah,
then I
yeah.
get a man that's willing to, to come and help take care of my kids and me, and oh yeah, I'm gonna stick it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He may have one over here and one over there and one over there, but hey, as long as he's holding it down here, he doesn't bring that home. Hey, I'm willing to put up with it because he's willing to, you know, do what needs to be done for me and mine. I'll overlook his shortcomings and try to
And that's
try to make
true.
it work.
And that's true. But the thing is, now I feel like money plays a huge part in it. Now, mind you, I'm not living that lifestyle, but women my age, I'm 34, women my age, they are looking for somebody who's gonna buy them Birkin bags and all this crazy stuff. And so they're the ones that's willing to put up with your lifestyle and having that and that and that over there,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna harp too much on that. But I'm glad we were able
But
to
you're
talk
right,
about that.
because but the men know, and the men know who are looking for a Birkin bag or these extravagant trips, and they're willing to spend that as long as they can get what they can get out of the situation too. It's very transactional.
Yes,
That's why
I
I'm
agree.
glad and I thank God every day for my wife, because
Hmm.
she's not one of them ones. You know what I mean? And I thank God for her every day. I definitely do. Matter of fact, I thank God for her parents
Yes.
instilling certain things in her, so she didn't become one of those ones.
Right. Right. Amen to that, man. So, how did growing up in Miami shape you into who you are today, especially dealing with parents who were, well, a parent who was struggling with addiction? Earlier, you were saying that you told your mom, like, I want to stay with my dad. So, did you end up just staying with him? And how did that go?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And I stayed with him, and things deteriorated quickly. We end up
Mm,
moving from our apartment, losing the car that my father had. Most of my prized possessions as a child were gone. They were either put in storage or they were sold for money. And
hmm.
you can already assume what that money went toward as far as my dad was
Right.
concerned at the time. Um, it was hell on earth from the time I was in third grade all the way to eighth grade. So we essentially um, we went from place to place as far as living arrangements are concerned, and then we end up living on the street, like literally, like living on the streets.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What were some of those challenges like living on the street and then trying to you're a kid, so you got to find food, you got to find a place to bathe, you got to go to school. Who he was he not Of course he wasn't taking care of you, but like were you taking care of yourself? Did somebody try to step in? What happened?
So here's the thing. With my father's military background, he taught me how to survive. So we had routines.
Mhm.
Um, we found a few places to sleep. I've slept in boxes. Like, could you imagine? I want you to picture this too. Imagine those big oversized boxes, right? So you take one end of the box, you close it up, you lay it on its side, and you slide in the box as if it's a makeshift structure.
Yeah.
So my pillow was, and back then in the '90s, we wore like long white t-shirts.
Yeah.
So imagine taking the long white tee, rolling up into a ball, and using it as a pillow. Taking another
Mm.
oversized long white tee, and I was pretty short, so this worked for me, and
Mhm.
pulling it over my feet, over my legs,
Mm.
and crouching down into it, and then laying down, going to sleep. Calling that going to sleep. Um,
Mm.
and taking the bath, taking the shower, that was almost non-existent. I used to go to a local McDonald's we had in an area called Carroll City.
Mhm.
I don't. Are you familiar with the rapper Rick Ross?
Yes,
All
yes, I
right, so
am.
he always yells out Carroll City triple C.
Mhm.
All right, that's one of the main areas that we were sleeping in, and it
Mm.
was near something called the flea market
Mhm.
on 183rd Street. So that
Okay.
we had a place to sleep from time to time to stay out of plain sight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would wake up and I would go to the McDonald's, and my father would show me how to take a bird bath. So the bird
Yeah.
bath essentially consists of going in the stall, getting paper towel, lathering it up with soap, put a little water on it, get another piece
Mhm.
of paper towel, rub it together,
Mhm.
and then, quickly doing what you have to do to clean up to get ready to go to school. So
Yeah.
that would be a routine every day. Now, every now and then when my dad was able to get enough money, we would go to something called the Turf Motel down in Liberty City. Now, we walked almost everywhere.
Mm.
If we couldn't come up with the money to get on the metro. Now the metro
Mhm.
is the city bus,
Yeah.
and we had to walk. We were foot soldiers. We used to foot it from
Dang.
everywhere. So oftentimes people would be going back to our family, and mind you, our family is predominantly from Miami.
Okay.
So they would hear rumors about us walking everywhere,
Oh my
all
god.
times of night. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
we
I was gonna ask you about your family. Like, no one saw you and was like, "Let me go pick my nephew up."
now as a kid, I didn't hear anything from anyone in our family when we would come
Mhm.
together for those get-togethers, or when we would go to my grandmother's house occasionally. They wouldn't say anything to me about anything. They wouldn't ask me, "Hey, what's going on?" or anything. So, in my family, which is prevalent in a lot of black families back then. They believed in what happens in this household stays in the household type of deal,
Yes.
and they also believe in a child staying in a child's place.
Yep.
So they would never ask me or say anything to me that alluded to my situation. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
but my thing is, after the fact, and I had a conversation with one of my family members recently too,
Mhm.
and they made that a point. They were like, "Well, it wasn't your place to have a conversation with us, or it wasn't our place to have a conversation with you because you were a child. But if they would have understand or would have known what I was going through, they would have known that I wasn't a typical child. I was a
Mhm.
child that was put in an adult like situation. So therefore my mindset
Mhm.
was totally different. Sometimes I would
Yeah.
sometimes when my father was on a serious drug binge, I would end
Mhm.
up just doing what I needed to do based on what he taught me as far as survival is concerned. And,
Mhm.
and sometimes I would go a day or two without actually laying eyes on him because he was
Mhm.
doing what he needed to do or what he felt he needed to do based on the drug
Mhm.
use. And I was doing what I was trained to do. I was
Oh my
trained how to
goodness.
wake myself up, go wash up, walk to school, get the free breakfast, wait a couple of class periods, get the free lunch, and then, after school, meeting him at the park. If he didn't show up at that park, I knew what to do in order to try to go get food or steal some food or
Oh my god.
or go to the local laundromat, sit there and watch TV as if I'm washing clothes, but I'm just sitting there posting. Hopefully my dad will pop up.
I'm
And
so
this was
sorry you
going
had
on
to
for but this
experience
was
that.
going on for years. I think the biggest thing that troubled me the most as a kid, I used to look around and I would see other kids with their parents or with their grandparents or with someone that was an adult looking after them. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I felt that everybody just left me out to dry. And imagine thinking and feeling that way as a third grader, as a fourth grader, as a fifth grader,
Yeah.
on and on. So I would go to school every day, and no one would think to ask me, "Hey, why do you have on the same clothes? Why do you look disheveled?" Anything.
Mm, mm,
But in
mm,
school,
mm.
they left me alone because I didn't make any waves. See, in Miami at that time, if you were one of those quiet kids and you didn't cause any mischief in class, they let
Mhm.
they let you be.
Mm.
They let you be.
Well, I will also say that one of the reasons earlier we were talking about like what's missing, why aren't families, doing what they used to do back in the day. And I think part of that is because of the trauma that some of us experienced in those families. And I don't know how you feel about your family now, but I'm just thinking about it from my perspective. I would feel some type of way and not want to be around them, because it don't matter if I need to stay in a child's place or not. Like, you're an adult and you see this situation going on with a family member that's a child. You got to step in and help them. I would try to do something if I knew one of my nephews. I have a lot of nephews and nieces. If one of them was going through what you were going through, I would step in as an aunt, because that's something I feel called to do. But I feel like maybe back then in the 90s, that's not something that people would do because of, to your point, oh, we're not going to have that conversation with him because he's a child. So, but by the way, how do you feel?
As a kid, you learn a lot through your family.
Yeah.
No matter what people say, kids learn a lot. I learned how to put things into compartments. I
Mm-hmm.
learned that when you had a misunderstanding with a family member, or if you had some type of turmoil, it's hectic right then and there. But after a while, you still come around, you let bygones be bygones without even talking about the previous situation that took place.
Mm.
So with me learning that by seeing that happen constantly throughout, various family get-togethers,
Mm-hmm.
I internalized that. I assumed that that's how life works, because my only
Wow.
example was my family. On the street, I had to adopt this savage life mentality. Like, listen, I don't trust nobody. If they got something I want and I need, I'm gonna take it if I get the opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
If I'm walking at night, late night, with my backpack on, going to one of the spots to lay my head at, I'm gonna make sure that I keep my head on a swivel. As a matter of fact, my dad taught me not to walk down the main street, which was 27th Avenue. Make sure
Mm-hmm.
I take 32nd Avenue, or make sure I take 22nd Avenue, because anyone could see me on the main strip.
Yeah.
But if I take the back roads, then more than likely I may I may be able to remain incognito. And I'm
Wow.
thinking like this as a third and fourth grader. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
my mindset was on survival. My mindset was on preservation. Because at the end of
Mm.
the day, I needed to make sure that I didn't get jammed up or caught up, because I didn't want to get my dad in trouble. So it went
Okay.
from a situation where he was my provider and my father, to I felt I had responsibility for him, because he was
Yeah.
out of his mind due to the drug use. And I was thinking like that as a child.
Oh my goodness.
So
Did your
imagine,
mom try to step in at all?
no, but and I'm gonna tell you why. And I'm gonna tell you why. So
Okay.
a lot of people that have read the book, they kind of passed a lot of judgment, and I want to remind everyone of this. In the book, I mentioned that when she used to call my grandmother's house, because that's the only number she had. We didn't have cell phones back then.
Right. Right.
They had beepers, but unless you were Nino Brown, okay. But she used to call my grandmother's house, and my grandmother
Yeah.
used to tell her that, oh yeah, they're fine. They stay here with me. They're just not here right now. That was the cover. That was the
Oh
cover.
my gosh.
So when I would occasionally talk to her, my father and I would go to a payphone, and we would call collect. Nowadays you can't find a payphone anywhere in
Right.
America.
Nowhere. They
But
used to be at Walmart.
oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah, they
okay,
used to be at Walmart. At least where I'm from. I'm
okay,
from a very rural area in
okay,
Maryland.
okay,
So yeah.
okay. But we used to go to payphone, and we used to call her collect. And my dad would tell me, hey, if she asks you where we stay, you need to tell her we staying with your nana. Okay, cool. So, she would ask questions, but of course my dad's right beside me while I'm talking on the phone with her. I'm definitely not going to tell her anything that's going on, because he's right there. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Um, but it got to a certain point where those calls stopped happening. And I would always think to myself, I wonder what my mom is doing. I wonder what my sister is doing.
Right.
I'm wondering where they stay. You know what I mean? I knew they were out of state. I just
Yeah.
didn't know exactly where they were.
Mhm.
And then my dad used to tell me things, but I gotta be blunt with it. And I love my dad to death. At that time, you're not gonna take a crackhead's word for anything. You know what I mean?
Right.
You may be
Right.
telling me something, but I know for real, that may not be 100% accurate.
Yeah.
'Cause I used to see my dad do all kind of things to get money, like lying, cheating, stealing. Like he taught me
Yeah.
those, and he instilled those things in me. So behind the scenes, I was doing that stuff too. Thank God I didn't try to use drugs.
Right.
That time frame that I went through on the street, that was my version of scared straight.
Yeah.
I told myself I would never pick up a drug. I would never attempt to use a drug. At that time, I was like, man, I'm not drinking. I'm not smoking nothing, anything, because I was like, man, if all it takes is one time to turn into a potential zombie, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. But a lot of kids haven't thought that way. They don't think that way sometimes, and they end up repeating history all over
Mhm.
again.
Yeah.
And I had the type of mindset where it was like, after a while, after a couple of years, I've accepted my fate. I was like, listen, all right, so I'm gonna be on the street forever for the rest of my life. I'm gonna make the most of it. This is
Yeah.
me. This is what I'm gonna have to do. Hey, I'm gonna make sure I'm as comfortable as possible. And there it is. But before I got to that point, I did consider committing suicide.
Mm.
I did.
How did you what happened for you to not actually follow through with that? Like, did someone come into your life at that moment? Did you have anyone giving you guidance from school?
Not at all.
Oh
No
my
one knew
God.
no one knew the extent of the situation that my father and I were living in. And the only reason why I didn't commit suicide, and it's in my book also,
Mhm.
I had a moment of clarity. I had a moment of clarity. I was on
Okay.
top of a roof, and it was raining, and I had enough. I started questioning God. I was like, God, I hear a lot about you. I hear about all these miracles, and I hear about all these things that you can potentially do for us. Why am I going through what I'm going through? And I was
Mm.
going to jump. But I had a moment of clarity, and that moment of clarity said, hey, listen, if you jump and you don't die and you paralyze yourself, you could potentially be a victim on these streets now. If I'm
Yeah.
in a wheelchair or if I'm on crutches, and I'm a kid thinking this way, if I'm in a
Yeah.
wheelchair or crutches in Miami, Florida, oh, you're a straight victim. Something going to happen to you. You can't run from nobody. You know what I mean?
You can't protect yourself.
You can't protect yourself at all. So, I was like, you know what? Nah, I'm not doing that, because if I don't die, I may be in more trouble than I already am. So,
Dang. That is crazy, man. Oh my God. So I know from well, at some point, um you say that your uncle was someone who came into your life. So I guess um was he the only person who came into your life? I don't know what part he came into it. So can you like walk us through that? Like, you didn't commit suicide. How old were you at that time? And then what led to that?
so I won't share the specifics.
Okay. Okay.
That
Cause it's
that's
probably in
that
the book.
that's in the book.
All
It's definitely in the
right.
book, and
All
there's
right.
more details in the book as well. I'm just giving a basic summary of that
Yes,
portion.
please. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. So and also I'm gonna leave a surprise for the age I was too. When
Okay.
you all read and see how old I was, you're gonna be like, what? So, but
Yeah.
when desperate times calls for desperate measures, and
Yeah.
I was at my wit's end. Emotionally, I was at my wit's end. I was like, man, listen, this is too much to bear. Like
Mhm.
a lot of adults wouldn't be able to experience what I've experienced. And I haven't even told
Yeah.
you to have. I'm just giving you, a general overview of some of my experiences, but it was tough. It was tough. And that's the main reason why I came out with my book, because people need to know, hey, the decisions that you make as a parent affect your kids either directly or indirectly.
That's a fact.
And the fact of the matter is, and what I've seen based on my experiences, is that a lot of times us as parents, we say things like, oh, um, we still have to live our life, or we still have to enjoy life. But at the same time, once you have kids, your main objective is to make sure you lay the proper foundation for your kids, regardless of what's going on with, you know, with your spouse or your baby daddy or your baby mom. Like, the fact of the matter is, you have to do what needs to be done for these kids because they didn't ask to be here. I didn't ask
Absolutely.
to be born. I didn't ask to be put in the situation that I was in, but due to selfishness, I had to pay the consequences.
Mm.
You know how they say
And
sins of the father?
no kid should experience that.
Right, right. But I did, and you know what? And this may sound strange, but I'm thankful that I was able to go through everything that I went through in order to do what I'm doing for everyone I come in contact with. Because at the end of the day, there's so much negativity in this world right now, and it starts from the top.
Mhm. Yeah.
There's so much negativity in the world. As a black male, a middle age, I can say middle age now. I'm 44 now. As a middle aged
Okay,
black
okay.
male, I have no shame and I have no problem with sharing my story with any and everybody, no matter what walk of life they come from, because people need to know that you're bigger than your circumstances.
Yeah, for sure.
Your circumstances don't define you. You define those circumstances. And we need to use it as motivation to show the younger generation, hey, I went through this, you're going through what you went through, but you do not have to let that defeat you or destroy you. All right?
Or
As long as
define
you
you.
or define you. Exactly. As long as you're willing to fight, keep pushing. And I kept pushing until my uncle stepped up to the plate and, scooped me up the middle of my 8th grade year. And, that he was a godsend. He was a
Mhm.
godsend, because if not, I would I don't know where I would have been. I know I wouldn't be here, doing
Yeah.
what I'm doing now. And to add insult to injury, the academic deficiencies were huge.
Oh man.
They were huge. I was one of those kids. I made up all kind of excuses about participating in class and not having homework. What I had all I was very I was very street smart. I had a lot of street smarts.
Yeah.
Academic book smarts, I didn't have it at all. But street smarts, oh yeah. I could talk my way out of a situation. Sometimes I could talk my way into a situation.
Mm.
But that that that's one of the things that I picked up.
Okay. So this next segment is called Digging Deeper, and during this segment, I'll ask you some thought-provoking questions about your career and your personal life. So, your let's take us beyond after your uncle got you and things started changing for you. One thing that keeps popping into my mind, I didn't even send you this question, but I gotta ask: how has forgiveness been a part of your life and your trajectory as a father and husband?
So when I got involved in the church, I had a wise person tell me, in order to get past all the past hurt, you need to be able to forgive those and that have um, done you wrong. You have to forgive them, not forget it, but forgive them. Because when you forgive them, you're not forgiving them for them. You're forgiving them for yourself. Because as long as you hold on to those grudges, and as long as you hold on to that pain, you can't progress as a human being.
Yeah.
And those words stuck with me throughout my entire life. Um, it made me cognizant of my interactions with people, especially my family members, um,
Mhm.
especially my daughters and my wife. Um, I utilize those past experiences as motivation to treat people better than how they treated me when I was going through my rough patches on the street.
Yeah.
I make sure that I reach out to people. I make sure I constantly ask, my wife, hey, how you doing? You all right? Or I ask my daughters, hey, you good? I'm just checking on you. I call my homeboys up, hey, y'all good? I've always been that bridge,
Yeah.
because I want to make sure that if anybody is going through something, they have someone that's willing to listen. Now I may not be able to help all the time, but at
Yeah.
least I'm able to listen. I can help you troubleshoot. And the most important part, if you need prayer, I got you. I'm your boy.
Yeah.
But being able to forgive, forgive family has been big in my life. Um,
And do you allow them access to you and your family, meaning you and the family you created, like your daughters and your wife,
oh
or
yeah,
is
definitely,
access?
definitely.
Okay. Okay.
Now, I will say this: there have been many people from my family that passed away,
Mhm.
um, that played pivotal roles in our family. And when they passed away, I could see the family growing distant. Do I think about the things they could have done when I was going through everything I was going through from time to time? Not necessarily. Not
Okay.
necessarily. Um, it wasn't until I came out with my book that I actually, you know, started having some uncomfortable conversations with a couple of people.
Yeah, that's important.
Primarily one of my aunts and my mother.
Mhm. Mhm.
And right before I released the book, I went to my mother's place,
Mhm.
and I told her everything that I went through when I was on the streets with my father. Now,
Mm.
she didn't know, and the reason why she didn't know what was going on is because, when I became an adult, I tried to talk to her and my father about everything in the past, but they would just, kind of disregard it because they didn't want to go down that rabbit hole. They believe in the past is the past, you know?
Mm. Yeah.
But they didn't really understand that, hey, for me to continue to heal, I needed to get it out.
Yeah.
And I was never afforded the opportunity to do so. So
Mm.
when I talked to my mother right before I released the book, I was able to, and for some strange reason, she sat there and she was listening without cutting me off, without trying to disregard anything, because she knew the book was coming. So she wanted to actually, she wanted to stop me, but
Yeah.
something probably told her, hey, listen, I got to hear it anyway because it's going to be in this book.
Yeah.
She she listened to everything and she didn't respond. And it was odd to me. And I was like, wow, she didn't say anything. But she called me the next day and she was like, um, what resonated with me the most was the fact that you told me that no one had ever apologized to you for anything that you went through when you were growing up. And she told me that her silence wasn't to disregard what I was telling her,
Mhm.
but it was a lot to process at one time,
I could
which
imagine.
which is understandable, which is
Yeah.
understandable. But then when she told me she told me afterwards, she was like, "Listen, I'm sorry. I didn't know exactly what you went through because I wasn't there, but I just want to say I'm sorry." When she told me that, could you imagine the weight that was
Mhm.
released from my shoulders?
Yes. Wow.
I was like,
That's
man,
powerful.
I was like, man, I I shed a tear, you know, I shed a tear,
Rightfully
and,
so.
and I told her thank you, on the phone. I told her thank you, mom. Like you have no idea what that meant, you know, no idea.
Yeah.
So when she told me that, I was like, man, listen, any reservations I had moving forward with this book and all the information I put in there, that's over with. Because
Yeah.
one of the most important people to me understands what I'm putting out. She apologized. I'm good.
Oh,
Yeah,
I love that for
I'm
you,
good.
man.
Because it's a lot. Listen, it's a lot in this book. It's a lot. And some of the things that took place that I talk about in this book
Mhm.
has it has some things that directly had happened with some certain family members that impacted me as a kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's some deaths that took place that hit me hard, that hit all of us
Mhm.
hard, but it hit me hard as well because I'm going through all these things, and then now I got people dying, or I've went through all this, and I'm thinking that hey, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and then all of a sudden this person dies, that person dies, this person has a diagnosis, and I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
God, what message are you trying to deliver to me personally?
Yeah. Has he answered that prayer from you? Did he tell you what
Listen,
answer? Has it been revealed?
listen. When those three particular deaths that I mentioned in my book occurred,
Mhm.
I was on some other stuff.
Mm.
I had got out of I had got out of high school. I went to
Mhm.
college, and I had completely lost myself in college. Part of me believed I was trying to find myself, but the other part of me believes that I lost myself in my identity. And
Okay.
and oftentimes, in order to save a life, especially one with purpose, God's gonna do some things to shake you to your core.
Mm. Mm-mm-mm.
And after the first death happened, I was like, yeah, all right, this happened. I'm messed up about it, but I'm still going to do this. Then the second death happened. I was like, what? All right, maybe it's a message. I don't know, but I'm going to keep doing this. And that third death happened. I was like, oh no, I know this. I know these deaths happen for this particular reason. Let me tighten up. Let me tighten up.
Okay.
And it's it.
So
And imagine being in college, your first, second year, and all these deaths are happening back home, and you completely losing sight of all the things that you went through before you got to that point.
at that point, you're a mess.
Right.
Then, like, you're unstable. Wow. So speaking of college, what did you originally go to college for? And did you end up with that degree that you went to college
All
for?
right. So I originally went to college to major in criminal justice.
Wow. Okay.
So remember I told you at one point in time I couldn't read. I was horrible academically.
Yeah.
So I went from com- being completely illiterate
Hmm.
to taking all honors classes in 10th grade at my high school. And even I was even enrolled in a dual enrollment program for the criminal justice not academy, but it was a criminal justice program at my old high school
Hmm.
where I could take college courses at the local community college
Okay.
and be ahead of the game when I started college. And
Wow.
yeah, so it was like a complete turnaround within a year. Could you imagine?
Okay.
A
I
year,
can't. This is
a year,
crazy, but
a year.
happy crazy. Like, wow,
Hmm.
this is great.
I
So,
mean,
what college did you end up going
I
to?
ended up going to Florida Atlantic University.
Okay.
And I majored in criminal justice. My main objective was to become a lawyer.
Okay.
Um, but some things happened. Uh,
Hmm.
I started talking to a particular young lady, so my
Hmm.
mindset changed. My mindset was like, hey, you know what? I can put law school on the back burner. Let me go get this other job that I can start getting money for. So I became a probation officer. I used my criminal
Okay.
justice degree to become a probation officer.
Hmm.
And at first, I liked it because there was a power dynamic a part of it. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
felt important. You know what I mean? I felt needed. I was like, you know what? These things need to be done. I got to make sure these people on the up and up, with a certain level of compassion based off of how I came up. But
Hmm.
then it started getting depressing. Seeing the same people come in, getting in trouble again, reoffending, then having to make that call to the sheriff's office so they can come pick them up from the office.
Hmm.
And then eventually they get out, they come back to see me. It's rinse and repeat. So, I started to have these little conversations subconsciously saying like, hey man, this is crazy. Like
Yeah.
this whole criminal justice system is it's almost like a game, going to the
Yeah.
courtroom and seeing the politics that take place inside of the courtroom and behind the scenes. And I was like, man, listen, it's got to be better. There's got to be more to it than this.
Yeah.
So my one of my godchildren, um,
Mhm.
his grandmother worked for the school district in Palm Beach County, and I was at their house watching a Dallas Cowboys football game. I remember it like it was yesterday. And she was like, "You ever thought about being a teacher?" I was like, "Me being a teacher? I don't even like kids." You know? Hey, I'm like, man, I don't even like kids. But being a teacher? No, me? No. So um, I went home and I thought about the question. And I was like, you know what? I think I can teach. You know. So there was a process I had to go through, and I
Mhm.
went through the process, and I passed all the tests with flying colors. So I was like, you know what, Lord, this may be a sign. So I went to the school to interview. Right? I got an interview
Mhm.
quickly. I went to the school for the interview, and the principal told me, "Hey, based on your resume, you have the perfect skill set for my school." I was like, "What?"
Wow.
I was like, "Hold on. What do you mean? It's perfect skill set. Criminal justice major. I'm from Miami. All I was doing was going to court, signing people up for probation. And if they violate, send them to jail.
Yeah.
Is that skill set you referring to?" He was like, yes. And in the area where I taught at first was called they call it the Raw.
Wow.
It's Riviera Beach, and it's
Okay.
similar. It's similar to where I grew up in Miami. Very similar.
Yeah.
So my first day in the classroom. Well, first off, I was hired. Right, he hired me on the spot. So
Yeah.
my first day in the classroom, I didn't know what I was doing. As a matter of fact, the first year in the classroom, I didn't know what I was doing. I was a language arts teacher.
Okay.
First day in class, young man walks in class, right?
Yeah.
I tell the kids, all right, sit down anywhere you want, right?
Yeah.
The kid
Yeah.
took his book bag off and put it in the chair and sat his butt on the ground. I was like, hold on, I know he didn't just try me like that on the first date. First period, first day of school, and this is what happens. I'm like, all right, no, you got to go. I went and hit the buzzer on the wall. You got to come get him. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it was like World War III. Every single
Oh
period,
man.
not every day, every
Yeah.
single period
Jeez.
for the first half of the year.
Dang.
I wrote 50 referrals my first year teaching.
So how did that change? Like, how did your teaching impact these children?
I had someone ask me, are you the type of teacher that you would have wanted when you were going through what you were going through back in Miami? That shook me to my
Mm.
core.
Yep.
That shook me to my core because I completely lost sight of the things that I went through and how I felt when I was going through everything. I had to go back to the drawing board. First thing I did was
Mhm.
I apologized to my kids in every class period because I was tripping. And they looked at me like I was crazy. They were they were like, "Did you just apologize?" I ain't never had nobody apologize to me for nothing, especially an adult. Can you do it again so we can record it? Nope. Not at all. But I apologized, and then I had to tell them, "Hey, listen, I was tripping, and the reason why I was tripping." And then I told them about my background. Once I told them about my background, they looked at me
Mhm.
differently. It was a different respect. It was a different respect level there that I established after the fact. The rest of the year was decent, but then the
Yeah.
second year and the years after that was smooth because I developed a reputation of building a rapport, an untouchable rapport with my students.
That's what's up.
I started going to different events, like different football games and different extracurricular activities just to support them. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
oftentimes they just needed someone to show that they care. The
Yeah.
same thing that I needed growing up is what I started providing for the students that I had. I even started going to events for kids that weren't even in my class because they would come up to me with schedules like, "Mr. Lennon, you're coming to my event." And I would, at first, being young and naive, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm coming." But then before you know it, you got 50 schedules. It's like, no, it ain't, you know.
Right.
But that was before I met my wife,
Mm.
and I didn't have a family. I was a bachelor, so
Yeah.
I would sacrifice time to show up. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Then I messed around and found a church in that community that I taught in,
Mhm.
and everything took off from there. I started taking kids to church with me,
That's
like
what's up.
doing Bible studies. Like I went all the way in because I wanted to make sure that every kid that looked up to me, that needed support, was receiving what I wanted to receive when I was a kid.
That's so good to hear. So how did you get into motivational speaking?
So being a teacher, and I'm going to say this, most of us are motivational speakers. That's half of the battle in these classrooms. If
I
you
would
can,
agree.
if you can motivate kids to do what they need to do, you have that in you. And you know what? And I'm going to take a step further. All of us are supposed to deliver the word. All right, I'm going to say that. And so all of us have that flair deep inside of us to go out there and motivate people to follow the Lord, and motivate people to give their life to the Lord and do what needs to be done, you know?
Yeah.
So I got into motivational speaking because behind the scenes, I'm inspiring these kids to do what they need to do for the most part. And after a while, adults that would hear these conversations, they would
Mhm.
say, "Hey, you're a wonderful speaker. You sure you went through what you told us you went through?" I'm like, wow, really? I don't know if to take that as a compliment or take that as a sign of disrespect. In the church that I was going to, in that community where I was working, the pastor asked me to deliver something called a sermonette, like a miniature sermon, like
Okay.
a back to school sermon, right?
Okay.
That's when I was able to actually first get my feet wet with motivational speaking. So I had this
Nice.
whole speech planned out. I had the cliff notes written on index cards. I was ready to go. You know what I mean? Had a little suit, had a suit on. I was ready to go. I got up there in the pulpit, and I was introduced, and I got in the pulpit, and I just felt something come over me, like a wave, like a cool wave that came over me. And when I started, the index cards I had in my hand ended up laying on the podium, and I just took off. And technically, it wasn't me taking off; it was the spirit taking off.
Yeah.
Because when I was finished, people were clapping and amen, hallelujah. And when I tell you, I remember bits and pieces, but for the most part, the Lord had taken over. And from that day forward, I knew
Mhm.
that I had a bigger calling. You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
know
for sure.
I knew, and I fought against it for a while. You know what I mean? Because I was comfortable teaching. I was comfortable in the classroom within my own domain. But oftentimes we got to step outside of our comfort zones to do what we're called to do. And that's what I'm all about.
Absolutely.
And that's definitely
Absolutely. So you're an author, as we've been mentioning over and over throughout this interview. Why did you choose to write your biography?
well. All right. So unfortunately, I do have to spoil one part in order to answer this question. Um,
Okay, this is the only spoiler,
yeah,
guys. I promise. I
yeah.
promise.
So my father passed away in
Mm,
2024, and when he passed away, I heard a voice say, "Hey, you need to go ahead and get this story out there."
mm.
I'm like, I know that was my dad's voice, because my dad was the type of person, he not telling people his personal business. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But I know it was something bigger than just me and him. It's about the message.
for sure.
And oftentimes, people that are part of my story, you know, some of them feel a certain type of way because certain things were mentioned in the story. Now, by the way, I changed up all the names in the story, all right, to
Okay.
protect identities.
Yeah,
And I just want to tell, if they're listening, and this is for family or anybody else in the book that was mentioned in the book, it's not about the specific details. It's about the overall message. Because in our communities, there's been a lot of foolishness going on behind the scenes. There's a lot of things that we let ride too much.
mm,
Um,
mm.
and it affects the kids,
Yep.
and it affects those kids, and it's a trickle down effect. We have to break the cycle.
For
And in
sure.
order to break the cycle, sometimes we got to have these uncomfortable conversations. Sometimes we have to do things that make even ourselves uncomfortable. It was extremely uncomfortable reliving the things that I mentioned in my book. But at the same time, I knew that it was a greater purpose in me releasing this book. A lot of the reviews that I have for my book,
Mm-hmm.
they mention the same central theme. This book can potentially help someone, or it could lead someone to getting the help that they need.
Yeah.
Everybody that I can think of that I know has at least one family member that's struggling with something.
Sure.
When
I
are,
I can name a few right
like,
now.
when are we going to step up to, especially the ones that have kids? When are we
Yeah.
going to step up to the plate and say, hey, you know what? Enough is enough. I need to do this for my niece or my nephew. I need to do this for my cousin, or I need to do this for my such and such. Like oftentimes when we feel disrespected, we're ready to ride. But what
For
happens
sure.
when we have someone that can't fight against whatever's going on in their life? Like, how long are we going to just, play the background and talk about it behind the scenes? Like, we got to be about action, especially
Yep.
in today's climate, in today, what's going on with our country. We got to be
Yep.
about action. Like,
For
all
sure.
talk is cheap. Talk is cheap because at the same time, the enemy is not scared to do what they're doing.
Yep.
And we were called to be warriors, not worriers. So all this second guessing, and a family member told me that, oh yeah, well, we were going to get you, but we didn't think you were going to come with us, or we didn't think you were going to tell us what was taking place, and this and that and the other. It's a lot of guessing. But that situation there is not new. Like I say, it's nothing new under the sun. This type
Right.
of stuff happens a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of us turn a blind eye because we don't want to get involved, or we don't want any ramifications for, pointing the finger or making certain telephone calls. If you know what I'm getting at,
Right.
you
Right.
know. And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, your inactivity is just telling the person that's struggling that it's okay.
Yep.
That it's okay. It's just a way of life,
And it shouldn't be like that.
right? I've called DCF many times for kids that told me, "Hey, listen, this is going on. This is what's going on," because
Yeah.
I know that it was either a cry for help or they wanted to have some type of solution to their problem. Well,
Yeah.
in any event, we're mandatory reporters as teachers, and
Yep.
when in doubt, I'm calling the people.
I know that's right.
Because if a kid's going through potential abuse or neglect circumstances, I'm not going to sit back and just let it ride, because I would have wished someone would have had the conversation with me when I was in third or fourth or fifth grade or sixth grade or seventh grade, all the way
Right.
into eighth grade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It would have potentially saved me some heartache. It would have saved me from becoming someone that I really didn't want to become during that time frame.
Yeah. When life gets heavy, even now, what keeps you grounded?
My faith, definitely my faith, and knowing that the worst part of my life was that particular time of my childhood.
Hmm.
My family, look to this day, my immediate family, my wife and my kids, things will take place and I'll say things like, and I really mean it too. It's not just lip service. Oh yeah, we
Hmm.
good, we got it, we'll figure it out. They get mad at me because I don't go off on I don't,
You don't get emotional about
right. I don't go off on a tangent, or I don't get emotionally distraught. But in
it.
the back
Yeah.
of my mind, I was like, man, listen, if y'all would have experienced what I went through as a child, this is small
Yeah.
potatoes. Like,
For
really?
sure. I can't imagine sleeping in a box.
But to be fair, though, they didn't have those experiences. How they're feeling is valid, no matter how
For sure.
small the situation may seem in my mind. And this is what I had to learn about myself. You know what I mean? Everybody's situation is different. Everyone's upbringing is different.
Yeah.
Their panic mode is valid. You know what I mean? Because whatever situation that took place, that's big to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But based on their experiences. It's not big
Yeah.
to me, but I shouldn't disregard how they feel because they didn't come up the way I came up. They didn't have the trauma that I had.
Right.
And it took some time for me learning that about myself, you know?
Did you ever go to therapy for it?
All right, so therapy. Okay. As a child, no, I was never recommended, or I didn't even know what therapy was after I got off the street.
Okay. So did you go as an adult?
So as an adult, when I became a probation officer, uh, I was recommended to see a therapist that had a contract with the
Mhm.
probation office.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm gonna say this. All right, please don't laugh. I know you
Oh,
might laugh
okay.
anyway. It's not.
I'm
It's
not
not.
gonna laugh.
It's not okay. So when I went to see this therapist for initial consultation, right?
Okay.
He asked me a bunch of questions, and my response to those questions were cookie cutter. I'm from Miami, all right. This is one thing I want to tell you. People from Miami, a lot of us, we have a way to finesse our way in or out of a situation. I think I mentioned this before.
You did.
So when he was asking me questions, I was giving him the answers that he wanted to hear. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So at the end of this consultation, he was like, "Man, you know what? I don't, man, you got it all together, man. There's no reason why you should come back here, man. I mean, if you want to, you can come here and hang out." I'm like, "What? Hang out? I didn't come here to, make friends." But I knew I did a good job of answering his questions in a manner where I made him comfortable to not want me to come back for additional
you're a
mandatory.
finesser.
Yeah,
You're a finesser.
I was a finesser. Okay, I was
Okay.
a finesser.
See,
I
I
was.
didn't laugh. I didn't laugh, even though
Yeah.
I really wanted
No,
to.
you smirking though. That's close to it. All right. So I'm gonna say this. At that time when I was a probation officer, that's before I completely locked in with the Lord. You know what I mean? Oftentimes I had to kind of code switch. So when I would talk to the probationers, I would talk to them a certain way. I would talk to my supervisor and people I work with a certain way. But then, I'll go back to my hometown and talk to, a couple of my homeboys, and I would, switch it up. So
Yeah.
I had mastered, growing up in Miami, I had mastered being able to go into any environment and being comfortable,
Yeah.
Um, so when I had that consultation with that therapist, I knew exactly what to do and how to do it.
Oh man. Well, did
Which
you
was,
ever try to go back to a therapist and
so
tell them really what was going on?
I did. Eventually I
That's
did.
good.
I
That's
did.
good. I'm happy to
Yeah.
hear that.
Yeah.
I am big on therapy, so I'm so
Mhm.
happy to hear that.
Yeah, and you know what? In the misconception of therapy, there's a huge misconception of therapy, especially as far as a lot of us are concerned. When I say a lot of us, a lot of the males. Fellas, there's nothing wrong with talking to a therapist. Nothing at all. Um, I was against it though. I was definitely against it. I'm like, man, I'm not telling nobody my personal business, man. So he can sit there and judge me and give me 55 sessions,
Yeah.
$35 a piece. Man, he trying to come up. That was my mindset. That was my mindset.
And I could see that.
Because, growing up where I grew up, you always think somebody's trying to get over on you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Even if they appear to be nice and friendly and accommodating, you always think in the back of your mind, well, what's their end game? What are they looking for out of these circumstances?
Yeah, some of us would consider that red flag. Like,
Yeah.
okay, why are you extra nice?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
you
I,
trying to come up. So
but
yeah.
I didn't realize that until I started teaching and I started looking out for the kids the way I was looking out for the kids. And
Hmm.
after a while, I would be questioned like, well, why are you doing this for the kids? Why are you doing that for the kids? Not knowing my background, not knowing what I went through.
Yeah.
They just see the what they deemed as the finished product and
Yeah.
say, oh,
Yeah.
where you're single, you mentoring all these kids and this and that and the other. What are you getting out of it? Not knowing the trauma that I went through and the generational curses I was trying to help them break.
Overcome.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I was doing it all for the Lord. Like it wasn't me because it was up to me. And I'm gonna be 100% transparent. And this is
Mhm.
one of my biggest flaws. I'm too transparent.
So you raw.
It
Yeah.
was up to me back then when I first started teaching. When I was when I was mentoring and doing
Mm-hmm.
all the things I was doing for the kids, if it was up to me and my flesh, I'd have just been chasing women the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I did engage in that, but I would have dedicated all my time to that. You know what I mean? And there's no telling what would have happened or transpired from that type of
Right.
lifestyle, you know?
Right.
But it was all God leading me to do those things for the kids because
Mm-hmm.
there's no other explanation of me going through everything that I went through and then
Mm-hmm.
going all the way up to Palm Beach and becoming a teacher, which I didn't even like kids initially, like I told you before,
Right.
and becoming a language arts teacher. First of all, let's go back. Illiterate, not good academically, to teaching English language arts. That's wild.
It is. Man,
But
I'm
that's
thankful for your testimony,
mhm.
man.
Yeah, yeah. No, I appreciate you having me on. I definitely appreciate
For sure. Now, what's next for you? Do you plan
it.
to start, well, I guess do another book? Maybe post life, like after everything you've been through.
So I started an LLC, FL Motivational Services. So I'm working on my public speaking, motivational speaking business, um,
Okay.
personal development and things of that nature. So I'm working on that, trying to get that off the ground. And as far as another book, you know, you're the second person that asked me that within the last 24 hours.
Wow. See, there you go. It's time.
I want to see where this first book goes. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
I'm working on an audio book right now. I have a certain way that I'm going to roll that out. That's going to be a surprise,
Okay.
and then hopefully I can get this book to the big screen.
What? I could see that as a movie. I could see it as a series. Like you know how they do those limited series? Oh man, that'd be crazy.
Yeah. So that's the plan. So I'm working hard behind the scenes. Um, I just need someone to take the chance to actually just read the book first and see if
Yeah.
they are inspired to help me get it in the right hands.
Yeah. Okay. That's what's up.
But my overall goal is I want to get to a place financially where I can start just giving out books to like the
Mhm.
boys and girls clubs, YMCA's and
Yeah.
different organizations because my book needs to be read by anybody that's able to read it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or listen to, once the audiobook is completed.
Yeah.
Because my story is motivational. It's also a cautionary tale, and it definitely can inspire anybody that reads it. I've had people from all walks of life read my book so far,
Yeah.
and I'm getting the same response every single time. And I'm like, wow, I haven't got any negative responses yet. Because a little bit in the back of my mind, you're like, you never know when you're gonna run into someone that's judgmental. But at the same
Right.
time, I carefully constructed my book in a manner where it has something for everyone in it.
Yeah. I can't wait to read it. I told you I'm gonna give you a review, so I'm excited to read it.
Appreciate you.
This next segment is called Uncomfortable Questions. This is like probably one of my favorite parts. And
Before you
basically it's
ask
similar. Go
before you
ahead.
ask this question, I gotta take a swig of water because
Go
I'm
ahead. Go ahead. You don't
new to
have to
this.
go super fast. You don't have to go super fast. It's similar to
Okay,
rapid fire, but they're either
okay.
or questions. And the catch is you have to choose one and explain why you chose it. So the first one I got, peace or hustle.
Ooh, all right. So I'm gonna go with peace.
Why?
The reason being is because a lot of people that I have come in contact with, a lot of people that I'm close to,
Mm-hmm.
as far as family is concerned, I see them spend their whole lives hustling or trying to come up. And then before you know it, life has passed you by because you're chasing the bag. But when are you going to have time to enjoy that bag if you spent 40 or 50 years of your life chasing that bag? You know what I mean?
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
Going through the experiences that I've gone through, I wouldn't trade my peace for anything
Same
because
here.
they have millionaires that still haven't reached that plateau where they can say that they're at peace Because once you get that bag that you hustled for, you're going to continue to chase another bag, then another bag, then another bag. It's almost like getting a tattoo. You get one tattoo, all right, it's cool. But all of a sudden, you want another one. Then you want another one. And then you want another one. And before you know it, you got sleeves everywhere. And you know what I mean? You're unrecognizable.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
definitely peace. Because
Okay.
at one point in time in my life, I didn't know what peace was because of all the turmoil that was going on.
Yeah.
And as a
Okay.
matter of fact, when I was on the street, I was hustling. You know, I was finding ways to get food. I was finding ways to get money. Thank God I never sold any drugs during that time.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't have a peaceful moment. Even when I was sleeping, my mind was going, you know, and now I'm at a place ever since I met my wife and we got married, I've been at peace.
That's what's up.
I've been at peace.
Fear or faith?
Faith. Faith.
Why?
The reason being is because, fear can get you hurt. Come on, where I'm come from, when you're in fear of someone or something, it can cause you to make irrational decisions. And faith can lead you to the promised land. And I don't mean that just literally. Like, faith the size of a mustard seed can move mountains.
It's in the
And
Bible.
that's right. And I had, once my uncle was able to rescue me off the street, that kind of renewed my faith in mankind. And it showed me that, hey, listen, all it takes is one person to make a difference. And I knew that it wasn't just because my uncle was my uncle. It was because what God was using him to do in my life for me.
Okay. Last one. Street smarts or book smarts?
Street smarts. Street smarts. Listen, I was able to use street smarts to make it from elementary to high school without knowing how to do essentially anything.
Yeah.
Now don't get me wrong. Book smarts, it means a lot. But at the same time, if you don't have the street smarts, then anybody can run game on you. They can essentially use you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are book smart, but they don't have those street smarts, and they're being constantly taken advantage of. They're not able to make it to that next level they're trying to make it to. You know what I mean? So yeah, I would say street smarts based on
Okay.
my experiences.
Okay. The final segment is called Rants with Sharice. And during this segment, you get to rant about whatever you want. It could be about people not showering, people not using their signal lights while driving, whatever. But after you share your rant, then you have to share a solution to the rant. So the floor is yours. You can share your rant.
All right, so my rant for this segment would be the ladies,
All right, let's go.
particularly the wives out there. Okay.
This gonna be good. Let me get my
Yeah,
Birdman hands
yeah,
going.
yeah. So, and this has nothing to do with my relationship because my relationship, is on point. But,
Yeah.
but, ladies, give your husband some grace. Okay. I realize that you all tell us tell us to do something over and over again, and you get frustrated. But please give us some grace. We have the weight of the world on our shoulders. You know what I mean? Not only are we the husbands and the fathers and the pastors in the household, we're the protectors, we're the providers. Please cut us some slack. You know what I mean? Like, we're doing the best we can, and the world is rough. You know what I mean? It's a rough place. We know it's rough for you. It's definitely rough for us, but let us get a moment of clarity sometimes. Sometimes, we don't want to argue, we don't want to fuss and fight. Sometimes just a hug and saying, hey, I love you, babe. I understand that we have differences about whatever, we're talking about, and we can table this for right now.
Okay. Let me get
So,
my mic for this. You want them to be a soft launching pad. Is that right?
no, those are your words, not mine. That can be taken any type of way. You know what I mean? So give me some clarification on what you mean by soft.
Oh, so basically just like not coming on so hard on someone and like we just talked about this peace, being someone's peace. Your husband should be able to come to you and be like, like you shouldn't bring so much aggression, or like the household shouldn't be so chaotic. Like when you come home from work, I'm sure your wife has made it so for you to just come home and take that weight off your shoulders. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I mean, like being a soft launching pad, like providing that environment for them to not have to deal with all this weight on their shoulders.
And the reason why I say that I said that is because I talk to a lot of males between the ages of 33 and 50.
Okay.
And it's a common theme. You know what I mean? It's a common theme. Oftentimes, I'm lending listening ears, and I try not to get into comparison, but oftentimes I'm like, wow, I don't say it, but I was like, that's not my experience, but everybody's
Yeah,
situation is different.
for
You know what I
sure.
mean? Like I said earlier in the podcast, a lot of people, well, most of us have different upbringings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever you were exposed to is probably different than what your spouse was exposed to growing up. Because oftentimes what I'm finding out is a lot of us didn't have good examples of what healthy relationships were growing up. I know I didn't.
Great.
So oftentimes we're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, you might be the first in your family to, have a marriage, or a healthy, what you would consider a healthy marriage. My parents, I told you, I grew up watching my parents married for 30 something years, or almost 30 something years now. So to me, I feel like I did have a healthy relation. Well, looking at my parents, they did have a healthy relationship. I never seen my dad like raise his hand at my mother or anything. He always talks about their, like, when they first met. But I also feel like what you said earlier, while you were talking about your rant, you said give some grace. I also feel like in return, maybe the guys should give their wife some grace too, because they're holding down a house for you. And maybe they're tired too. They just picked up this sock that you decided to leave in the bathroom floor. Maybe they upset about that. It's like, dang, I just told you about this like 5 times, man. Why you leave the sock on the floor?
Right.
But
So,
hey, that's just
so
an example.
no. So let's compromise.
There you go. Okay. What
Compromise.
should they do out
No.
there? Tell us what they should do.
So let me change the message. Ladies and gentlemen, give each other grace.
All right. I'm with that. Solid advice. Before you go, can you please share your social media with our listeners and where they can find your book?
So on Facebook, it's my first name and last name, Fernando Lennon. On Instagram, it's M_F_Lennon. And on TikTok, it's FLENNON 954. So it's F Lennon 954. And I'm posting content on TikTok. As a matter of fact, I have some surprises for you all. If you do look me up on TikTok or social media, I've recorded some content where I show you some of those locations that I mentioned in my book. So
Oh,
I go
okay,
to
cool.
Miami and I show locations of where some of the things that I described took place.
Dope. That's what's up. I don't follow you on TikTok, so I need to follow you after this is over with. That's
No
real
worries.
cool.
No worries.
Well, it was a pleasure having you on. I hope you come back and you tell us, hey, we're about to do this movie, featuring the book. So that'd be
Most
cool.
definitely. Most definitely. Hey, thank you for the opportunity. I definitely appreciate it.
My pleasure. And thank you for listening to Connect Like Minds.